Welcome back to the Midnight Gospel, where we fall asleep to stories slower than time itself. Somewhere outside the gates before the crowd, a disciple wakes. Nothing aches. He lets the morning find him, without hurry. He stretches, the way you forget to, quiet, simple, feeling the straw under his palm, the fabric of yesterday's cloak, the warmth still left inside it. The world has not yet begun to move, but the bread is waiting for its making, and the streets are cool. In the dim, he slips outside, no sandals yet, not for a little while. The stone is cold, grounding him. Far-off voices gather, then scatter. Someone yawns. The well's rope is heavy in his hand. He draws water before he thinks too much about the day. Sunlight climbs so slowly. The birds keep their secrets. He rinses his hands not for anyone, just because it's the morning's first thing. His mind is still quiet, as if he's waiting to wake up again. In a courtyard below, someone laughs, sweeping straw. A donkey noses a basket, searching for nothing at all. He remembers there's something sad inside, but he lets it rest. There will be time for noticing joy and time for grief. Today it is only beginning, wide and slow, the kind that lets you drift in and out of it, nothing to solve, nothing to prove. You don't need to stay awake for the story, it will stay awake for you. The listener is breathing slowly now, still between dreaming and breakfast. Maybe there's a first flicker of sunlight on the mud brick wall. Someone stirs lentils before the house is even fully awake. The warm sleep on their cheek, the hush of other dreamers, their daily life is slow, plain, and holy. All movement is careful, nothing has to hurry. The little ordinary things are full of quiet blessings. Every stretch, every yawn as the morning grows lighter. He stands at the doorway for a long while, feeling the sun on his arms. It's not dramatic, just slow, measured. He might sweep the floor where he sat last night, or pour water for bread. One task, then another. The air is cool but gentle. There's a rumor somewhere far away, but it hasn't reached this house yet. Maybe he glances out the window. Just that, the ordinary sunrise meant to be noticed. Let this moment stretch. The night listeners can drift. The story keeps walking. Even the dust in the sunlight is holy, and he finds himself smiling just because he's breathing. There are mornings shaped only by the slow work of hands, washed in the dusky quiet. Well before the sky gives up its final stars, we sit beside the low table, glancing at the heap of flour, a hush broken only by the sound of it falling from fist to bowl. Cool water, pouring in the shape of thin silver, soaks the grain. Our voices hardly rise above the gentle scrape of wood. Someone begins to knead, palms pressing and folding again. Rhythm as measured as breathing, but softer. There's no hurry. Let this moment stretch. Kennel is nearby, dusting crumbs from last night's flatbread. Never enough to save, but we gather each bit in a damp cloth. Outside, the town's waking birds carry on as if morning is too light to worry about. I watch them sometimes, sudden, then still, tracing the same lines across the roof as we do across dough. Even this silence is holy. The lamp flickers, even though daylight is coming. It sits among the simple things. The chipped jug, a knife wrapped in linen, the bowl of dried figs by the window. Two figures sink onto their knees to shape small loaves, flat, imperfect, perfect enough. No one talks about yesterday or the road tomorrow. We talk about nothing at all. The silence feels safe, like a stone house in rain. A neighbor calls from the threshold to ask for garlic. Her voice is the only thing that moves the air. She leaves as quietly, hands folded around what we could spare. I go back to the rhythm, press, turn, fold. That's all. Sometimes I hum without thinking just to fill the space. Let this moment linger. Someone has stacked sticks for the fire. I watch the careful hands arrange them, raising a scent of cypress and smoldered dust. We wait together. We do this every day, and some days it feels longer than others. Hand on hand, old stories half whispered. Not sermons, just stories of wheat and water and how bread changes when air is warm. My role is only halfway there. I fold cloth, fill jugs, keep the door from swinging wide in the breeze. The little work feels larger when no one is looking. The night's chill has almost gone. I brush hair from my brow and watch the dough rise, barely. The heat of the coals, slow and sure, eases aches from the knuckles. We mark the oven with a bit of oil and murmur a quiet thanks, more out of habit than hope. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. A friend returns from the well, robes wet at the hem. She pours water for the table, careful not to spill, and sits with us. No one asks where she's been. She sighs, cups her hands around the jug, and closes her eyes, letting the steam soften her face. There are days when even sitting still feels generous enough. Let your breathing fall in step with this quiet. We eat together, not much, just warm bread torn and passed without counting. Someone offers olives. Someone laughs at nothing in particular, and it's enough. We lean close, shoulder to shoulder, listening to the road outside waking up, lonely boots and voices fading past. The sun finds the edges of our table. For a moment, it rests on the hands of the oldest among us, catching in the lines like gold thread. He asked for nothing and still felt full. We gather the crumbs again, always the crumbs, and watch as a bird alights on the windowsill. Its head tilts curious before it pecks once and is gone. The room holds the hush after, as if something almost happened but not quite. We finish eating, wiping our hands on the same shared cloth. Each of us stands, stretching legs, rubbing sleep from eyes still caught in dreams. The little space between going and staying feels longest. We tie sandals, check satchels, count out dried honeycakes for the journey. One by one, someone steps to the threshold, squinting at the light. I watch the shadow fall, long and gentle, across the stone floor. Time stretches, folds, and goes on. May you let the morning fill you with quiet. Someone lingers by the door, touching the frame as if to remember it. I sweep up flour that's drifted loose, tuck the linens, turn the bowl over in clean water. We share a look, something tired but content, and nod. No blessing spoken, but the room aches with peace all the same. The road waits, but no one hurries. The air is sweet with bread and the smell of wool. Voices rise, then fade. Laughter slips under the door, gone before it matters. Let the stillness do the work. Today is a day for walking, but not yet. We sit together once more, letting the dust settle. I close my eyes just a moment, pretending I am a stone, and the sun is soft new rain. No lessons given, none needed. Only the quiet gift of being here. A bowl of bread, the hush of morning, the slow, steady breath before the road calls. The story is waiting. You can sleep if you need. The day will wait with you. Welcome back to the Midnight Gospel, where we fall asleep to stories slower than time itself. Somewhere outside the gates, before the crowd, a disciple wakes. Light gathers slowly, not all at once. Shadows slip off the stones, soft as a hand on your shoulder. The streets are quiet, still tasting of the night. Sometimes it feels like the world keeps secrets hidden in the early hours, before the bread is broken, before the voices rise. Someone sits nearby, just listening to the hush, breathing in the soft air, folding yesterday's thoughts beneath his cloak. He looks at the long road ahead, still cool with morning. It's not a special day, not to anyone watching. Just feet in dust, sandals worn at the edge, moving slow toward a place called Emmaus. There's no hurry. The silence stretches, gentle as a sheet over dreaming bodies. You don't need to stay awake for the story. It will stay awake for you. I sat just outside the gate on a stone still warm from the afternoon, watching the road breathe in and out with feet and carts. Flax dust drifted off my sleeves as I picked at a loose seam, cloth between fingers, the world just spinning on. Another day letting tasks arrange themselves around my body, not rushed, never rushed. I could hear sandals shuffle through gravel, two men, moving slower than the sky. They paused sometimes, almost in step, but not quite. I listened to them speak, their voices blending with the hush of the city's sigh. I looked down, smoothing my thread. If I made a mistake, who would really notice? The gate creaked shut every evening, and it was not my job to hurry the hinge. Let this moment stretch, like the shadow from the olive tree across the road, moving only because the earth turns. Even this silence is holy. A woman passed by, headscarf fluttering soft as moth wings. She carried a basket, figs maybe. I watched her for a while. I didn't call out. The air was sleepy still, wrapped around my shoulders. I pulled at another bit of thread and breathed in the cool stone beneath me. Breathing slow is easier when there's nothing to hurry toward. Close by, the men kept talking in the dust. Something about the road to Emmaus, places I'd heard of but never walked. My day's travel was only the soft corridor from my door to this gate, but I felt the world move past sometimes, gently as a lull in a quiet song. The bread I'd packed for lunch was almost gone. I tore off another bit, chewed soft, eyes half shut. The sun made patterns on my skin that felt older than worry. No one needed me to explain the shape of the afternoon. It explained itself softly, over hours that bent and stretched and stood still again. The gatekeeper yawned. No drama, just living. He asked for nothing, and still felt full. The clay jar beside me tilted in the dust when a shepherd's dog wandered up. He sniffed at my feet, and I offered him crumb after crumb until he kept going, tail slow as dusk. Let the world turn beneath you, even if you don't see it. Let your heart beat forgotten for a while. The night listens with you. The two men, almost out of sight now, stopped by a little place where the road split. One of them paused with his hand on the other's back, like he didn't want to let go of this small, regular moment, even if their words faded in the stretch of coming dark. A bird settled on the gate, looked at me and away. My hands stilled on the cloth, just breathing, not asking or expecting. The evening gathered itself neatly around the city's edge, silent, soft, aloud. Someone lit a lamp by the door down the street. The circle of yellow drifted into the dusk, as small as a wish. Shadows grew taller. No one hurried home. Not in this hour. Sometimes people say the world is always moving, but I've learned you can sit so still in its turning that you almost hear God breathing too. No fanfare, no thunder. Just the space between footsteps, the rest between songs. Let your eyes grow heavy. If you slip beneath this quiet, nothing here will change. The gate will remain closed. The city will dream its ancient dream, and somewhere, the road to Emmaus is longer than the hours. But here, by the gate, stillness is enough. Welcome back to the midnight gospel, where we fall asleep to stories slower than time itself. Somewhere outside the gates, before the crowd, a disciple wakes. You don't need to stay awake for the story, it will stay awake for you. The day is hardly begun. The sky presses light into the earth, gentle as a hand. Across the garden wall, voices move quietly, traders opening sacks of dates, the bark of someone's old dog, just far away enough not to matter. You sit at the edge of the yard, knees drawn in, hands resting easy in your lap. I remember that old bench, splintered but soft, slouched under the fig tree. The tree was just beginning to offer shade, not because it meant something, just because that's what fig trees do. Sun on your ankles, cool dirt beneath your feet. The crowd was already gathering somewhere out beyond the village, but here it was still. Let this moment stretch. You watched someone carry a jar, slow and careful. The clay glinted pale in the morning. They waved, you nodded. Neither of you needed words. Silence here was its own language. Even the birds kept their distance, airing their thoughts in quiet bursts, then pausing again. You reached for a flat stone, turning it idly in your palm. Nothing felt urgent. There was talk lately of men on the road, of hopes that wandered and stories that doubled back on themselves. You thought of them out there, voices mixing with dust. Still, you sat. No one asked you to leave. Nothing required you to listen. You just listened anyway, letting the world move softly beneath you. Even this silence is holy. The morning thickened. A neighbor passed by with her basket of lentils. She smiled, slow and sleepy, her steps brushing the ground. Your hands found a rhythm in the quiet tap, tap, thumb over stone, a pulse steady as faith. Down the lane, a child practiced skipping, tripping, laughter folding gently into the air before fading. No one noticed your prayer, but it was heard. The story unfolded somewhere just out of reach. You remained on the edge, wrapped in peace that asked for nothing. The night listens with you. Welcome back to the midnight gospel, where we fall asleep to stories slower than time itself. Let your eyes rest. The night has come in quietly. Only a lamp's glow moves at the edge of your room. Somewhere outside the gates, before the crowd, a disciple wakes. The sun is barely more than a thought in the sky. Cool air slips through the stones. Cloth shivers at the open window. The disciple sits, not in a rush. He watches a neighbor cross the yard, pausing to adjust her basket so the figs won't bruise. Her steps are careful. The path she follows is worn as a palm. Nothing is new, but nothing is wasted. He hears water moving in clay, slow as a prayer. Someone is filling a jar against the threshold, careful not to spill. Voices drift from behind a shutter where bread is risen for no one in particular. Let this moment stretch. He lifts his robe, brushes dust from its fold, sets it aside so the morning dew won't cling. The air smells of last night's olive smoke. A chicken blinks at him from beneath a wagon, unconcerned. He steps toward the well. Stones ache beneath his sandals. He remembers the way his father used to test the rope, not out of worry, just habit. Some things keep us whole. Even this silence is holy. He helps a woman tilt her jug, silent but for the sound of water meeting water. She nods, thanks him with her eyes. No one says a prayer, but it's heard anyway. Through the gate the city stirs, traders in the distance, children laughing before their chores find them. The disciple remains where light is slow. He stretches his hands into the sunbeams. Nothing aches, nothing hurries. Another friend passes, arms full of firewood, a mended sandal dragging from her belt. They share a glance, no words. The friendship is old, a comfort worn smooth by years. The day asks nothing they didn't already give. Let yourself breathe slowly here. He folds a cloth, edge over edge, never quite lining up. The careful work calms his thoughts. He remembers watching his mother do the same, lips quietly moving names in her prayers. He never learned all the names but tried to learn the patience. The morning finds him sitting on a low step, bowl in his lap, shelling handfuls of chickpeas one by one. The thin skins flutter in the breeze. He lets them scatter. Let the world grow quiet as you listen. Gold dust lifts in the light, warming the stones. A dog passes at a gentle trot, tail flicking at flies. Somewhere nearby, an old man hums a half-remembered tune, almost a lullaby. Birds answer softly from the fig tree above. It occurs to the disciple how nothing much is happening, but everything is still being held. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Even the stillness has its own embrace, the sort you feel in your shoulders once you've let go of trying. A neighbor kneels to gather beans that spilled from her basket. The disciple moves to help, palm to palm, not rushing. They share in the silence, two old rhythms folding together just for a moment. Let your mind wander with the sun as it climbs. He sweeps the entryway, careful to leave a little dust undisturbed. His friend once called it foolishness, but he likes a bit of earth near his door so it knows it's welcome. Bread and dust have always shared this house. A prayer is whispered behind him. He doesn't listen for words, only the hush that follows. It rings in the air, like cloth billowing in the wind, soft and blessing nothing in particular. No one notices, but it lingers and he welcomes it. You don't need to stay awake for the story, it will stay awake for you. Welcome back to the Midnight Gospel, where we fall asleep to stories slower than time itself. Somewhere outside the gates before the crowd, a disciple wakes. The ground is quiet and cool, the morning air heavy with dew. No one is in a hurry, not even the small line of clouds shifting in the distance. Across the field, sandals rest near the embers of last night's fire, still warm, not needed yet. You might hear a bird, you might not. Even silence has a chance to linger here. Somewhere, bread will rise slow and low for days like this. Let your breath loosen. There is space enough to wait, to sit in the hush. You don't need to stay awake for the story. It will stay awake for you. The market feels older in the afternoon, like it's tired from too many greetings, too much counting out of pinched coins. The baskets, light now, drape empty netting across the ground. Someone sweeps the stalls with a bundle of dry reeds. Dust floats, a veil in sunbeams, and settles again where it belongs. I walk quietly along the line of closed clay jars. Most are sealed, but one leans open. Someone forgot it, or maybe left it so the air could soften the figs inside. I breathe, and everything tastes like sun-warmed fruit and bread. Someone else's dinner, waiting. The slow talk of sellers trails after their goods, quiet, winding arguments about the price of lentils, hands brushing against cloth. but their voices lose shape as the stones grow cooler beneath my sandals. The market's fullness drifts away, but not its goodness. Each shadow holds something cheerful, even as the day lets go. The smallest kind things seem most solid at the end of business, someone tying twine around a loaf, another refolding a linen so the corners meet, a child too shy to barter, tucking a pebble in her pocket and wandering home, unhurried. Even this silence is holy. I stop by the well. It's quieter now, thick with the smell of drawn water and tired hands. I watch a woman dip the last pail, her arms steady, her eyes another shade of earth. Nothing moves quickly. She nods as she passes. I nod back. No one waits to be noticed. The sky isn't impressed by us, but the evening sits heavy with gentle expectation for sleep, for bread, for whatever blessings don't need a name, a bowl of lentils for tonight. I rinse them. Watch their skins slip in the water, tiny shells pale against my fingertips. They are plain. I stir them slow, let the water swirl the day's heat away. The quiet inside this task feels sharp at first, then softens, with each circle of the spoon, each small, settling breath. It isn't remarkable, but it is enough. He asked for nothing and still felt full. I rubbed my thumb along the rim of the bowl, listening to the street grow quieter. Even voices seem to fade at this hour. I think of the market's talk, of the way bread makers dust flour from their arms and old men drag benches back inside. The crowd peels away in careful pieces, like a loaf breaking apart. Everyone keeps something to themselves, tucked safe until tomorrow. Let this moment stretch. I walk out to the edge of the street, where sandals have pressed 1,000 soft hollows into the dust. There is a fig tree by the wall. I rest beneath it, not because I'm wise, not because it means anything, but because shade falls across my lap and the stone is cool. Sometimes the best place to be is simply the next piece of ordinary ground, the corner seat, the back of the crowd. Aloneness isn't lacking, just a softer kind of full. I close my eyes. I listen. The sheep are far off. The voices are even farther. It is the sort of quiet that fills and empties you at once. The night listens with you. Someone passes, a neighbor, arms full of herbs. I don't catch her eye, but I smell coriander, cut mint, reminders that tomorrow will taste like today. We nod and she moves on. That's enough. Everywhere people make room for sleep in small ways, folding sacks, drawing shutters, counting the figs that are left, not for hunger but for comfort, like a memory you press beneath a pillow. There is nothing left to buy. Still, the market is not empty. The ground is littered with small, forgotten things, wrappings, twigs, a beaten coin wedged beneath a stone. I think about how abundance is more than plenty. It is the hum that lingers after voices leave. It's the way the last slice of bread, torn and shared, stays soft. The way water, carried home slow, tastes colder in the hush. The market has faded, but the day is generous. Even in its ending, sit with this simplicity. I rise when the fig tree's shade grows thin. There is nothing waiting for me, but I feel no emptiness. I smooth my hands down my tunic, shake out a pebble that was caught in the hem. The sun lets go of the walls, one gentle finger at a time. Everywhere, peace gathers in the small spaces we leave unfilled. My steps echo a little, barely, tenderly, reminding me that I too am carried in this quiet. There are prayers here, hidden like seeds. No one notices, but they are heard. I walk home with an old basket, the kind with a split handle, and each step is slower than the last. There is no hurry, now that the world has grown soft. The door waits open, candles hardly burning, and the table is set with little, just lentils, a crust of bread, maybe a memory lingering in the air. You don't need to gather more than you can hold somewhere. The sacred abundance settles around your ankles, plain as dust. Let the stillness do the work. The path home is longer in the cool of evening. The stones are soft with shadow, and the breeze moves quietly as if it, too, is getting ready for night. Small sounds pass between the olive trees' sandal soles, someone else's laughter drifting from far behind, and the hush of my own breath, slower with each step. I don't hurry. There is no need. The road isn't empty, but it isn't crowded either. Just two or three others between the fields, carrying baskets or stopping to fix a strap that's loosened in the dust. I watch a boy with a bandaged finger cradle a handful of wild flowers. He walks in close silence with his mother, both looking at the ground, as if the beauty might escape if they don't move gently. I let the moment stretch, let my worries walk ahead of me for a while. A house in the distance leaks music into the evening. It is not joyful or sad, only present, like water running in a hidden brook. I pause beneath a fig tree not because I am tired, but because the shade is patient, waiting with me as the day folds itself quietly. The lamp I carry isn't heavy, though I hold it with two hands. Its warmth trembles from the belly of the clay, lighting the road one uneventful step at a time. No one notices as I shift it back and forth. I think about how easy it is to believe something bright belongs only to the center of a story. Out here at the edges, we can still see by it. The last bit of sunset presses gold between the rooftops. I reach into my satchel and find a bit of bread softer now. The crust nearly disappeared with my thumb's worry. I break it not carefully and eat. No one asks. No one would deny me. The hunger of this hour doesn't rush, it waits for quiet like everything else. Someone passes, murmuring a blessing. I nod and don't remember the words. They aren't meant to be remembered, only received, plain as light across the toes. Even this silence is holy. I reach the place where a stream crosses the road. Someone has woven reeds into a loose basket and left it to dry on a stone. I touch it just to feel the shape of another's patience. It reminds me that every day is built like this, reed by reed, moment by moment, simple, silent work. My breath softens. The night listens with you. There are footprints in the dust, plain as fingerprints on the rim of my lamp. I try to make out shapes, the wide arch of an old woman, the deep heel of a traveler with a heavy pack. I see marks from a stick dragged behind a child. None of them cross paths in the same way, like prayers that rise in slow loops, heard together but spoken apart. Above me, the sky is falling into blue. One star blinks open, careless, not yet noticed. Somewhere down the path, someone is describing the day to a friend, but their voices are too soft for even my lamp to carry. The air is cooling. I tie my shawl tighter around my shoulders and let my hands hang loose. This is not the same walk as morning. It is not for getting somewhere, but for letting the day put itself away. I hear the familiar voice of a neighbor, calling a goat home in a language meant only for ears close to the ground. My own house is just ahead, but the world outside is gentler now. I sit on the low stone wall, letting the weight of the lamp settle on my knees. From here, the hills look like folded blankets, and the sky stretches as far as any story. Someone coughs. The sound is far away and then forgotten. A stranger walks by and slows for a moment, glancing toward my lamp. He asks for nothing and still feels full. We both nod, unbothered, as if we had agreed to keep the brightness small, just enough to see by, nothing more. Let this moment stretch. I stand and follow the cool line of the street toward home. The doors are closed, but the window above the lintel glows orange from inside. I know my family is there, waiting. There will be no hurry when I return. The work is already done. The bread cooled on its towel. The last figs counted out without quarrel. The sweepings under the mat undisturbed. As I step through the doorway, I set the lamp on its shelf. My mother is mending a tear in a tunic, her hands slower than they were years ago. My sister turns lentils with a wooden spoon, the pot crooning quietly to itself. My father's sandals rest by the door, dustier than mine. The world feels small and safe, folded in by dusk. No one asks about my walk. It is enough that I am home, that the lamp is still burning, that there will be warm soup in a little while. I sit by the small window and watch the last pearls of daylight go out in the courtyard. My sister hands me a fig, half split but sweet. Our hands touch and then fall away. The air is full of hush. My mother hums, almost as quiet as her needle. The tune doesn't rise above the clink of the spoon. I listen for words, but there are none, just a comfort woven into the room itself. I let my eyes close a little, the soup steam drawing slow pictures in the dimness. Let the day become holy in its ending. Let the world begin to sleep. An ember in the lamp glows softer as we eat. No one speaks of the road ahead. No one imagines a miracle on the threshold. The quiet is full, ordinary, enough for tonight. My father stands and smooths his beard. He glances out the door and back at us, as if counting stars no one else has seen. My mother gathers her needlework, folding it so the thread isn't pulled. My sister wipes the rim of the soup bowl with a scrap of cloth, layering it with an old sweetness. My own hands fold in my lap, just so, like every ordinary night I can remember. The slow, patient lamp flickers. Its flame leans toward the window and waits. Nothing needs to be finished, no story completed. Grace lingers in things left undone, in bread not eaten, letters not sent, words not spoken. The world feels holy in its smallness, the quiet, the cooling stone, the left-behind basket outside. In this house the lamp stays lit. The night is deep but gentle all around us. The Lord walks slowly, too. There are some nights when sleep drifts in slow, before the oil lamp burns out, and some roads that hold their silence, even with footsteps passing by. That day I walked a little behind two men, stranger and friend. Their heads bowed, cheeks gray with dust, sighs lost in the wind. I was in no hurry. None of us were. My hands carried bread in a cloth, lint stuck to my sleeves. The cloth was heavy, cool at first, then warmed by the sun through the morning. Nobody spoke for a long while. I could hear the hush between their words, the tired way their voices landed and then curled away. They were speaking of sorrow, like people do when the whole world tilts, but it was gentle, no outrage, just questions falling one by one, like olives dropped into an empty sack. With every mile I let their talk fall into the dust. I didn't know the stories, just the shape of their backs, the ways their shoulders rose when they breathed out. and the steady sound of stones turning under sandals. It is a good and ordinary thing to listen without asking, to let strangers have their silence. I looked at the way the light curved across the road, gold in the grooves left by passing carts. Let this moment stretch. A boy was selling water from a battered jar. I was thirsty, so were the others. No one spoke when we drank. The cup passed from dry hand to dry hand, water sweet and plain as it ever was. One man wiped his mouth and looked away. The other pressed sand from his eyelid. Even this silence is holy. A dog trotted ahead. For a while we watched it, not because there was meaning, but because it was there. A dog on the road, another creature sharing the dust, his ribs gentle hills under the fur. I noticed a woman digging in loose earth, her cloak patched, her hands cracked. She was just far enough away that we passed without greeting. She looked up and I nodded. She smiled, small and worn. That was enough. The sun bent lower. Shadows stretched long and soft across the path. I slowed down. Stones pressed into my heel, but I didn't mind. There were stories in every step, though none rose up to be told. Bread shifted in the cloth, the weight lighter now. Somebody must have taken a piece when I wasn't looking. I liked that. Somewhere near midday we stopped, not for hunger, just to let the heat pass. The air was thick. I could smell thyme, sour wine, earth baked beneath our feet. I picked at a sprig, rolled it in my fingers, left it on the stone. The others sat in the shade, not quite touching, their conversation now a hush beneath the drone of a fly. I heard a prayer that wasn't a prayer, one word offered and gone. The night listens with you. After a while the men stood, a bit slower, more tired. I followed, counting the steps between us, measuring their pace. The day was nearly dim. Someone had made a small fire just off the road, smoke hardly moving in the hush. I stopped with them, not too close, not too far. No one was hungry, but bread came out anyway. Hands broke the pieces, chewed out of habit, chewed because the day needed an ending. Every movement felt remembered, like hands that had always done this, here at the side of a nameless road. The silence was softer now, a blanket settling. Stranger and friend looked at each other. One face seemed lined with knowing, the other still surprised by sorrow. Nothing was said that hadn't already been spoken. Even the dog, now curled by the fire, didn't stir. I watched the smoke wind up, thin and blue, disappearing into the cooling air. Let this night drift. Somewhere behind us, stars began to argue their way through the dusk. Someone hummed, low and barely, maybe not even realizing. It was the kind of tune you hum when there's nothing left to say. I smoothed the edge of my sleeve, picking at a loose thread. For a while, nobody needed to be anything more than tired and present. Someone yawned. One man poked at the embers, the other stared into the flames. The fire made all our faces gold and a little sad. Mostly we watched. It was not loneliness, but the kind of quiet that comes at the end of a long walk after sorrow has done its talking, and there is nothing left but to tend to the ordinary things, scraps of bread, sand and shoes, another mile waiting in the dark. Even this boredom is blessed. When the food was gone, we folded up the cloth, crumbs catching in the crease. The fire shrank to a circle of orange, then just a chain of small coals. I tipped my head back to watch the way the sky remembered to be blue before it went black. For a while we just breathed. There was nothing holy about the moment, but it felt quietly like the kind of thing that matters, more than the stories, more than the journey, just this. sitting near strangers, leaving no mark except the warmth we made together while the night stretched forever and barely at all. The floor is cool, the clay pressed smooth by sandaled feet all day. I straighten the folded linen by my sleeping place, careful not to rustle too much, because the night carries every sound so far. The lamps are out along the path. Their breath of gold has given way to blue, and the corner of the house curls in that deep hush that only comes once the voices drift away. My hands are tired, almost grateful for the small ache. Sometimes it feels like the ache is proof I was here, maybe even loved in some simple, unnoticed way. Behind the house, I hear the sheep settling, and one distant low that feels almost like a sigh. The moon makes its slow climb, spilling a stripe of light along the stones. I watch it, feeling like it watches too. These are the hours when the world is so gentle, it barely stirs, and yet every small thing feels alive in its own quiet prayer. I gather up the last cup, wiping the rim with my thumb, setting it by the pitcher. There's nothing special about it, nothing in the routine, nothing in the way water waits in clay except that it has always been this way. Sometimes I think the miracle is that I remember and that everything continues. Oh, I breathe and it all keeps going, slow as grass. There are still crumbs on the table. Maybe someone will find them in the morning. I let them be. It feels nicer not to tidy everything. Even the bread deserves a soft ending. My breathing lands quietly, chest lifting, sinking the same as yesterday. I let the day fall behind my eyes, blurred and safe. It was only a day, but it mattered to me. I line up my sandals by the door, two shadows meeting for sleep. I brush my palms together, dust falling away. The world lets go of me, grain by grain. The walls here are thin, just reeds and mud packed smooth, but they hold in the warmth. Someone hums softly across the courtyard. I do not know the tune, but it feels a little like memory. The beds creak, the boards settle. The night calls out its own slow blessing. No one needs to listen, but I do. Sometimes my mind reaches for prayers, but mostly this time of night I find only a whisper, tucked behind my breath. Thank you for the rest. Thank you for another ending. Thank you for keeping me among the living. I stare at the lintel, counting all the ways the darkness softens the edges. I don't rush. My heart knows its pace, steady and quiet as the moon climbing over the fields. There is no hurry, no story left unfinished. Whatever walked with me through the dust is still here, just quieter, somewhere in the hush beneath my ribs. The linen is cool against my cheek. I close my eyes and the world folds up all its edges. Maybe tomorrow I'll notice something holy, or maybe holiness is already here, listening with me, as the house breathes and the night holds us both. Stillness holds me, the Lord knows my breath, I am not forgotten, God